Hi, I'm Grey Tiger. Welcome to my Legendary Lord Speculation series, where I take a look at characters who have not yet been added to the game, which we may receive in future DLC related to Game 3. In this series, we explore their lore, speculate on potential matchups with known rivals, and speculate on possible campaign mechanics and starting positions. Our focus today is the masked monument builder of Nakahara, Ramhotep the Visionary. He was the greatest necrotech to live in ancient Nakahara, with his craftsmanship and engineering abilities second to none. He was responsible for the statues in the Valley of Kings, the grand necropolis of Raestra, the monuments of eternal death in Zandri, the monoliths of the Great Plains, and many, many more. Ramhotep, in life, kept his accomplishments quiet, for upon completion of their works, great artisans were expected to commit ritual suicide. Ramhotep disagreed with this tradition, and instead acted as an assistant, allowing others to take the credit for his designs. This allowed him to work on many a project during his mortal life. In his later years, Ramhotep realized that there was still so much more to accomplish, and his vision reached far beyond his mortal lifespan. It was at this time that he decided to accept the honor of mummification, for only then would he have a hope of one day continuing his work. Upon completion of a great monument for the king of Qatar, Ramhotep fashioned himself a death mask and prepared for his interment. Over the passing centuries, few of Ramhotep's works remained unscathed, be it from the weather, the shifting sands, or from looters, and upon his awakening he was horrified, and set about restoring his works to their former glory. His skill in undeath was as great as it was in life, if not more so, and his many carvings would once again stride into battle as if carved only yesterday. Ramhotep now works relentlessly to restore and maintain his masterpieces, and with his army of constructs he takes revenge upon those who defiled his works during his long slumber. Based on Ramhotep's lore, there are no concrete rivalries. Perhaps the closest we get is where Ramhotep invades the lands of the Empire to take revenge upon those responsible for the desecration of sacred monuments that he built during his mortal life. In 2141, an army from Reichland invaded Qatar, damaging dozens of Ramhotep's monuments as they looted the city. The desecration was bad enough, but the supreme insult was when the steam tank Deliverance smashed through Ramhotep's terracotta wall. After working for over a century on the reconstruction of his marble army, including hundreds of towering constructs, Ramhotep enlisted the aid of Archon the Black, who used the dark arts to raise a bridge of bones directly into the lands of the Empire, which Ramhotep marched across. The cities of Uberstreik and Grunberg were razed to the ground during his campaign. Concerning Ramhotep's starting positions, the mortal Empire's start would be quite easy to define. A dual start with a home base in the deserts of Nakahara, while Ramhotep and his army start on the borders of the Empire, perhaps with a foothold in a small settlement. The player would have the choice of thrusting deeper into the heart of the Empire, or instead concentrating their power at home in order to gain strength to conquer all of Nakahara. On the Game 3 campaign map, placement would be a little trickier. Perhaps Ramhotep could start just south of the Darklands, with a goal of restoring the monuments in the area to their former glory, having to fend off Skaven, Dark Elves, Dwarves, and other Tomb King factions. On the tabletop, Ramhotep has no mount options. This would be somewhat limiting, so I would give him the standard options of a horse and a chariot, and perhaps give him access to a new type of construct. He comes with a number of special rules, including Flammable, Frenzy, Hatred, and Nekaharan Undead, along with the standard necrotech abilities, Stone Shaper, and Wrath of the Creator. These are all basically handled already in the game. There are two unique abilities though that Ramhotep comes with on the tabletop that we would want to adapt. Frantic Fervor adds the Frenzy special rule onto any unit that Ramhotep is embedded in. Since we cannot embed units in the game, we would change this to a passive ability that affects all units within 40 to 60 meters of Ramhotep. They would gain the Frenzy ability as long as they remained within Ramhotep's sphere of influence. The second ability, Master Artisan, allows the player to select a construct at the start of the game on the tabletop. That selected unit will be allowed to re-roll all of its failed armor saves. We could change this to a single-use ability, where the player targets a construct and for the remainder of the battle that unit has increased armor or physical resistance. Aside from the mentioned abilities, Ramhotep can have some magical weapons. There is nothing named in the lore itself, though there are numerous mentions of Ramhotep's whip, so we could make this a magical weapon called the Lash of the Heavens, that increases melee attack, armor piercing, and grants 3 uses of a magical thunderbolt ability. We could also create an armor piece based on his death mask, called Mask of Supreme Majesty, that would grant armor, melee defense, and regeneration, along with a reduction to building construction time and costs on the campaign map. What campaign mechanics might we create for Ramhotep? I'm thinking that Ramhotep would gather resources like marble from regions on the map to create Ramhotep's most ambitious masterpiece, a Grand Hara Titan that stands 1.5 times taller than any other, called the Grand Hara Titan of Qatar. This grand construct would come with increased resistances, melee attack, melee defense, and bonus for infantry, along with some special abilities that can be unlocked as the campaign progresses. The special abilities would include the Scales of Xandri, which would be a passive ability that slows all enemy units within a 60 meter radius of the construct and reduces their melee defense and armor stats. The Ritual of Raistra, which would be a single-use ability that would tear at the souls of enemies within a 60 meter radius of the construct, draining their life and restoring the construct's health. And the final ability would be the Fires of Qatar, which is a single-use cast that causes a long trail of fire to tear across the battlefield, causing major damage to all units in its path. The canopic jars and marble gathered would be displayed in a new user interface, where pieces of the Grand Hara Titan are combined to unlock the Hara Titan and the player's Regiments of Renown list. The interface would require the player to spend the resources on technologies that would grant pieces of the construct or would grant bonuses or new combat abilities to the standard constructs available. As well as the new user interface, Ramhotep would have access to several unique buildings for refining materials and for upgrading constructs on the battlefield. The player would also have access to a mechanic where the Grand Hara Titan of Qatar and all other Hara Titans could be adapted based on what enemies the player is facing. This would adapt the existing greenskin scrap mechanic in much the same way it has been used for Dryads, where the player can change the loadout of Hara Titans by spending marble and gold at any time. There would be a few different loadouts, with one being geared to fighting against large monsters, having increased weapon damage and bonus for large, another designed for fighting infantry with increased melee attack and bonus for infantry, and a heavily armoured version for prolonged engagements that has increased missile, magic, and physical resistances. So there we have how Ramhotep the Visionary could be added to Total War Warhammer 3. Would you be interested in seeing Ramhotep added to the game? And if so, what mechanics would you like to see implemented for him? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed this look at a possible future Lord. If you have a Lord you would like me to look at, then let me know in the comments section. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like, share and subscribe. I'll just wrap up with a shout out to my Patreon supporter, Hot Apple Pie. Thanks for the continued support, mate. I'm Grey Tiger, and I'll see you next time.